And you already know this channel will hold racist Caucasian people accountable, because if we don't, who will? And before we start this video, we don't like black people, black issues, black talks. Get to stepping. Now run a tape.
Frustrated people from the Roseland area attended a community meeting tonight hoping to get answers regarding the chemical explosion last Friday. WG News' Rick Gogri was at the meeting and is live now with the story and Amy. Rick?
Yeah, Kurt, tensions were very high here at Grant's Chapel as residents looked to share.
Hey, Seagull here, back with another one. Hope everyone out there's having a good day. On today's video, we got some of the most mysterious videos you're gonna see.
What would you say to somebody that hasn't tried therapy before?
Just ask yourself if what you're doing in your life right now is working. If you have peace, if you have good relationships with loved ones, or if you have healthy boundaries, if you're able to put your head on your pillow at night and just fall asleep, if you've got control of your marriage or your parenting, if what you're doing is working, then maybe.
In the unforgiving world of Dallas drill, where diss tracks double as death threats and rivalries are written in blood, few names carry more weight than FBG Murda. The front man of OTS wasn't just another rapper chasing clout. He was the voice, the image, and the heartbeat of his crew. But with fame comes enemies, and today, the man who once stood as the face of a movement now lies on the edge of life and death. This afternoon in Irving, Texas, Zach's Mufflers, a small automotive repair shop. Here, an argument over payment escalated into something far more deadly. In seconds, the everyday business became the scene of a shootout.
That's my favorite college.
OTS members, FBG Bubba,
LSU.
better known as FBG Murda, arrived for
I'm
car
fine,
service.
Arrow. How you
But when
doing?
payment became the issue, tensions quickly escalated. What began as a dispute at the counter ended with firearms in hand. What began as a heated exchange turned deadly in moments. Beto and FBG Baba opened fire on the shop's employee, striking
That's
him
this
in chaos.
here.
But the mechanic
Mason,
managed
what's
to
your
shoot
favorite
back.
college?
So y'all start shooting at the mechanic, cause it sounded like y'all tried to play him like he was a goofy. And y'all either wanted to pay him what y'all wanted to pay him, or y'all didn't want to pay at all. And y'all started going back and forth. Y'all thought y'all was tough Tony. You know what I'm saying? Y'all thought y'all...
UCLA. Arrow, I don't need you to pray for me. Because for one, I don't know what you're going to be praying. So I'm good on that. I don't need you to pray for me. I can pray for myself. My mama prayed for me. You like football or basketball? It's gonna get cold. The temperature's dropping. So it's no longer like 100 degrees and 90 degrees. It's probably like, it's starting to get like 85. Thanks for liking. Thanks for tapping the screen. Is it cold where y'all at? I need to make me a salad. I'm hungry. Let's go make a salad. Let's go make a salad. Let's go to the kitchen. Let's go to the kitchen. Let's go.
So the invisible, I got 100 bodies, nigga. You ain't gonna talk to me like that. Ah. Uplift, sound like you shot him, and you shot back and probably popped one of y'all. Now, this is an exhibit 45,000 that shows you that being a street nigga and a tough guy does not make you bulletproof.
Stop it.
Okay? I don't give a damn how many bodies you got. You ain't bulletproof, bro. That bullet hit you, you gonna bleed, and it's gonna burn like everybody else, bro.
I like to play video games. I like to stream. I like to play video games. I really don't do much, but I like to do a lot.
Just for playing video games on your phone. All you need is an email and a password. Follow the directions on each of the campaigns, and you can earn at least $100. My personal favorite game to play was Sunrise Island, and when I clicked on it, they had a $370 bonus. I got $370 just for playing the video game on my phone. On average, it only takes about 17 minutes for most people to start earning money on freecash.com. So if you need some free, easy, extra money, go to freecash.com, click the QR code right here, or go in the description below and start getting that bag. You did? Do your homework.
Did you know that the vast majority of self-published books don't sell more than a few copies? Well, the one thing most of these underperforming books have in common is the fact that they haven't been professionally edited or designed. On Reading, you can find the perfect editor, proofreader, and cover designer for your book without breaking the bank. And you can ensure that the book you put out into the world stands out, even amongst the major bestsellers. Browse through hundreds of handpicked editors, or filter your search by genre, service, or even keyword.
What the hell?
Make your choice. Start reaching out. Create your free Reading account today and give your book the best chance at success.
I'm gonna make a salad. Make a salad.
Did you know you could be entitled to a 5 or 6-figure payout if you were in a traffic collision within the past 2 years? Yes, even if you weren't the driver. Just click on the link around this video to discover how much you're entitled to. Fill out a free 30-second quiz and you're done. Because if you had to miss work or been hurt by a motorist in the past 2 years, you may be owed money. You might know it. It could be a 5, 6, or even 12-figure sum. We're going to find out over 25,000 accident victims that covered $15 billion collectively with free case about your outstanding enforcement enforcement, paying each other legal fees, or how do you handle the insurance fraud when they won't? Even to drug court, non-care fees, cycling, and motorcycles. Faster justice for your bill. Or freedom. Or freedom for the same drug.
Where you from? I'm from the USA.
to lose. Click on the link to fill out the free 30-second quiz right now.
That's great. What's up, best man?
Multiple times before collapsing himself. Within seconds, both men were down. The
You're welcome.
video from the scene captures.
Please, what? Thanks for what?
Beto was I'm gonna die. Help me.
When they get it, they go back around, they feed, and they clean it on the lawn. That's how you gonna react, Sean. You're not supposed to be scared of that. You're supposed to be scared of something. You're supposed to be a gangster. Go ahead. I'm a gangster. If they take me, at least I was a gangster. Go out like a dove. Don't go out crying and begging for help and all that shit. Praying to God and all that. Don't do that.
5 officers rush into frame, surrounding him as they
Do
work
you stay
urgently
alone?
to keep him alive before rushing him to the hospital.
Everywhere you go, and everyone you meet is playing together.
We have this house for the weekend.
Seems like we also booked this house.
It was supposed to be just us and all we're strangers. She's pretty.
So is he. Sorry, dude. This is an opportunity. Prove your love for the weekend, sir. But if you leave now, there are things about us and each other you never gonna know.
It seems like someone wanted all of us here.
Well, it's kind of like getting chess. I don't know what happened to Liz.
Oh, fuck. Oh, my eye.
That was like murder right there. Somebody begging the police to say, look at the graph. Like, please, I don't want to. I know you don't want to go, bro. So stop acting like you just.
The second man who opened fire alongside Beto, identified as FBG Bala, was quickly arrested and taken into custody. Beto, however, was left clinging to life. Doctors placed him in critical condition, and at the time of this recording, his fate remains uncertain. shot in broad daylight by B4 barely a week after Arrow had been released from jail. Now, with Beto fighting for his life, his enemies wasted no time haunting him online, filling their stories with celebrations and disrespect.
That's gonna happen,
Turning
bro.
this tragedy.
You already killing people in this and they dissing them. And then make fun of it, what you think? When something bad happens, people gonna be gonna cry. Then they gonna try to get, they gonna feel bad, they gonna feel sad. Hell no, they gonna be laughing too, like how you laughing at them.
For the streets.
But then this thing, look up, and the bitch said, you a fuck, and that bitch ass nigga just gonna lie on me to the mind, and you a fuck that nigga, fuck Beto, nigga. What's up, what is this? What are these doing back there?
In just a matter of weeks, OPS has been dealt blow after blow. First, the broad day shooting at the real FBGK.
That's what happened.
The shooting of their frontman, FBG Murda, after an alleged attempt to run off on a muffler shot from the European protect. A crew on the scene is untouchable. Now appears shaken, wounded, and surrounded by rifles.
Ain't nobody gonna touch me. I'm gonna go to his page though real quick. See if we can see something else that, you know what I'm saying, wasn't on the ground.
Yes, sir. We're going to talk.
Therapy has been a massive part of my last few years, a massive part of the reason that I'm able to be a musician again. I think I've always been a nice person, except that that's always going to be there for me as a big thing. It's about how I respond to anxiety and how I respond to a lot of stuff in my life is how I show up for myself. I have neglected to look after myself in the past, both mentally and physically, and I have made promises to myself that I haven't kept. I always talk to my therapist about staying in my platform that's within. I know it's going to be a piece of trust, but I think just remaining steady and some happiness, at least. Yeah, that's, you know.
I don't really see no other videos. That is your other recording. I'm down most of the time, so I'm in his car. Yeah, I don't really see that else really other than the videos. Yeah, no, like he's sitting on his life. I was trying to see if it was a video of him, like, you know, saying how he don't die, but I don't know, bro, like, it wasn't free summer. Anyway, you on the flow begging for life, and you know what I'm saying, when you get hit up a few times, knowing, especially knowing what you done did, all the bodies that you been playing, all the murders you said you did, self-proclaimed that you did, no. You can't wait till you on the floor bleeding out and start praying. Start asking God for help. Start asking the police for help. And I know you probably snitch K, you gangster thug, savage, and all that. You can't wait till shit go bad for you. You know what I'm saying? It don't necessarily work like that. Just like how you can't call your homie. You can't call somebody your homie, but you only call him when you need something. No, don't call on God now. Call on them gangsters. Call on them switches. Call on them guns. Call on all that you was depending on before. Don't call on God now. You gonna call on God before you start killing people. Especially with a nigga like this, because you got the money, you got the bread to go ahead and leave the streets alone. He wanting to be street niggas until it's too late. Until they get that courtroom. Until they get that cash. Then now they want to be law-abiding citizens. I should have went to school. King Von, FBG Murder, whoever else, bro. You can have 100 bodies. That shit ain't gonna make you bulletproof. You know what I'm saying? And you don't need a bullet to. It's not that hard to start a lie to somebody, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you, man. It's a million and 20,000, 100 million, bajillion ways for somebody to get on a lie, bro. You feel? A 14-year-old kid can hit me the right way in my chin, knock me out, and just keep stopping me until I ain't in no more. It's not that hard. You feel? So, what we just saw was the real. That was the real. The shit that we see on the internet is when people get on the internet and try to play crazy and try to act like they this Grim Reaper ass devil man who takes souls and untouchable and vampire, who takes killers and burn it. Like, you get what I'm saying? That ain't the case, bro. I don't give a damn how fucking anxious you is. When them cell doors closed, you got 50 minutes to leave on top like anybody else. When you bleed on the floor, you got hot bullets in your ass, you gonna be praying to God. Anybody else. So stop getting on the internet acting crazy, acting like you somebody that's not supposed to. None of us like that. You feel? We all cry, we all bleed, we all get happy. You know what I'm saying? We all get sad. We all gotta go at some time. One gonna feel. So I'm gonna keep saying, stop looking up to these niggas, boy. These niggas is misguided and do your homework.
Most people have this big misconception about books and movie publishing. If you ask most people to imagine a literary editor, they'll think of some hard-nosed Manhattan. But that really couldn't be further from the truth. Most of the editors own it. And most of them work freelance. You know, just go to the website and read it. They've handpicked a few thousand of the world's top authors. Anyone in the public who's written a book can reach out and work with them. So say you've written and you want to work with an editor who's done stuff, Stephen King, who's edited The Dalai Lama. You can find them all there. If you don't believe me, just go to read, sign up for a free account, and you'll quickly find out that all the best editors are there.
Scale your content 10 times faster with Magic Write. Turn one idea into tons of content tailored for any audience or platform, all in a few clicks. Save time with fast and easy content generation. Try Canva Pro today.
Last thing they saw was Drake. Nigga know my sister, bro. Don't need to show his face. She worked that way in prison only years. We the reason that people got 12 days. Cheers. When I get my deal, we popping bottles on the block. Cheers. Spin the whole city. We trying to do it out weird. Be a man.
1.5 what, man? 1 and 5 what? 1 and 5 8? I do not like you no more. I do not like you.
Police are trying to find the people responsible for a shooting that took place at a funeral gathering.
Neighbors describe the scene as like the Wild West.
It was multiple people that were armed, and so it was meant.
How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Cat Williams got arrested? What?
This settlement check completely changed my life. And it came from a car accident I
got
almost
arrested,
forgot
y'all.
about. I never imagined something this big.
In South Haven, Mississippi, 52-year-old Reginald Carroll was shot and killed last week, and 38-year-old Trinell Marquise Williams has been charged in his death.
People we talked to said the two were very familiar with each other. Posts on social media say Carol was recently on tour with Cat Williams, and multiple people tell WRNT the suspect served as security for Williams.
Also,
WRNT
Cat Williams
spoke
ain't get
of
arrested with
lifelong
security
friend of
did.
Carol's, who says his family wants answers.
Tonight, many in mourning after the death of 52-year-old comedian Reggie Carroll. But beyond providing laughs, loved ones say he was also a father and a veteran.
I'm kind of like that for them.
Carroll was killed last week. South Haven police say he was shot at a home on Burton Lane. No one answered the door there today. Since his reported death 6 days ago, WREG has been pushing for answers. So have Carroll's loved ones in his hometown of Baltimore, Maryland.
No one's talking right now.
Kim Earl Mitchell says he's known Reggie for...
Y'all be doing clickbait.
Y'all keep saying the Grand Canyon isn't strange because you went on your little family vacation and everything like that and you saw the great sights. But hear me and hear me good. It's strange, and it's been some strange discoveries made. We're gonna check this video out right now.
The Grand Canyon is a lot of things. For one, it's visually stunning, but more than anything, it's big. And when something is big, it's easy for stuff to get lost. And some of the lost stuff that's turned up inside the Grand Canyon has been truly mind-bending levels of odd. These are the 20 strangest things ever discovered at the Grand Canyon. Number 20. Cliff collapse reveals fossils. It's always fascinating when new fossils are discovered. With each finding, science makes a step towards progress in its understanding of the way the world is formed and changed throughout its history. But when fossils literally capture a moment in time, then that's the cause to be extra amazed. When part of the Grand Canyon had a cliff collapse back in 2016, a Norwegian geologist named Alan Krill went poking about in the rocks that had fallen, and he made an awesome discovery. As a visiting professor at the University of Nevada, Krill had taken a bunch of students out hiking in the geological wonder that is the Grand Canyon when he saw the fossils. He took photographs of the fallen rocks and shared them with some colleagues, and it transpired that these fossils were the footprints of two creatures that had taken a walk across a sand dune about 313 million years ago.
Very, very narrow digits. Probably their claws.
The sand dune would have eventually become the Grand Canyon, and their footprints would be encased in the rock of that epic landscape for millions of years before a shift in the rocks.
If you trying to get some kind of reaction out of me with what you saying, it's not gonna work. Tell me why she can't use the N word. What? So I don't like what? Why is you telling me that? Because everything you saying don't make no sense to me. So why are you telling me that?
Revealed their tiny part of the story to the world once again. These fossils are currently the national park's oldest fossilized vertebrate tracks, but who knows what else could be inside that incredible landscape.
And yet there's still people out there who say dinosaurs never existed. Why are they teaching y'all that? Why are they telling y'all that? And I'm like, huh? All of this stuff we're finding. Like, even this year, it's like everything we keep finding points to that time. I'm sorry, y'all, but I just heard somebody say that the other night, and it bothered me. So
now it's time for the sweet topic. This is the Grand Canyon discovery that terrifies the whole world. Because nobody knows who carved it, but buried near the bottom of the canyon's chasm, explorers found a peculiar rock formation that seems to resemble that of a giant hand. Because of how much like a hand it looks, there's no way this is naturally occurring. Somebody put it there, but the question is who and why. Based on the condition it's in, we have to assume it's 100 years old or more. But what do you think? As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below
What I need to
using
fly
the
for?
hashtag #SweetTopic. Number
I can fly in the U.S. What do I need to fly for? Fly where? Yeah, I can fly. Fly in the U.S.
19. The Great Unconformity. One of the craziest things that's been discovered in the Grand Canyon is actually not there at all. Mysterious. This is the thing that is known as the Great Unconformity, a feature of the erosion of the rock in the Grand Canyon, in which there's evidence of the geological change in the area over a long period of time. The unconformity is that there is actually a massive part of the geologic record that is missing in the Grand Canyon, about 1 billion years worth to be precise. So how does it happen? Well, how can 1 billion years worth of rock layers just be missing? There are a couple of different theories about this, but the main one would suggest that since the part that is not there is the surface between the Tapiat sandstone and the metamorphic rocks of the Granite Gorge, it is a period of time in history of the world known as the Snowball Earth. This is a time when almost the entire planet was covered in ice during a period of glaciation, and the places on Earth where the Great Unconformity exists, like in the Grand Canyon, were affected by the Snowball Earth. When glaciers move, they tend to erode sediment and drag it away from any underlying rock, which could explain how so much rock had shifted and is no longer present where it would otherwise be expected to be. This is also possible that the rocks simply didn't form during that period in these areas, but it's not possible at present to determine exactly how or why this happened. Number 18. Cave of the Domes. There is only one official cave that is open to the public in the Grand Canyon, and it's actually a network of
I wonder why that is. Only one cave out of all of that that's around there, and possibly that's there. One is only open to the public. I wonder why.
underground caves and is super interesting to anyone who is into hiking and poking around in dark holes.
And entrance, the main entrance.
It's a hike down to the cave system of the Cave of the Dome.
Fly to your white girl, bro. Fly to your white girl, okay? I'm saying, what do you want? Why are you talking about, okay, so you want to go fly to see your European woman that can't say the N-word. Good for you. No, you don't. You want a European woman that can't say the N-word. I'm trying to fuck, what the fuck you brought that up for?
Near the area of Horseshoe Mesa at the end of Grandview Trail, and not only is the cave itself kind of cool, a hike there takes you away from the more busy village area and into a part of the Grand Canyon with yet more spectacular views. There is an old miner's cave with limestone domes that have been gradually eroded over the millions of years. The cave is dry and dark and eerily quiet, and the signatures scratched into the cave wall add a nice spooky element. These are actually just the markings of visitors from the 1900s. Nowadays, you're encouraged to write your own in a visitor's book instead. Number 17. Nautiloid fossils. This next old rock is a coiled nautiloid fossil that was discovered in the Kaibab Formation in the Grand Canyon. Finding a sea creature inland like this might seem a bit weird, but the area has changed somewhat in the 270 million years since the creature was alive. The area that the fossil was discovered in is covered in limestone that was created during an era when the Grand Canyon was actually covered by a shallow sea. This creature was a long ago relative of modern-day cephalopods like squid, and it would have lived on the seafloor and used its tentacles to catch prey.
You don't speak no English.
That is known as a holotype specimen, meaning that it was actually used to identify and describe a new species called something I can't begin to pronounce. Number 16. The split twig figurines. All the way back in 1933, a bunch of discoveries were made in various caves across the Grand Canyon. These are split twig figurines, and they are really, really, really old. Usually crafted from a single twig that has been split, hence the name, these shapes are often willow sticks that are bent and folded into intricate shapes to make the figures of animals. There are several different designs that have been found all throughout the Grand Canyon, but the most typical are those that are shaped like deer or bighorn sheep. Occasionally, there are pieces that have been shaped to resemble spears, These figures were found in 15 different caves across the region and have been dated to 2,000 to 4,000 years ago. These split twig figurines have been found in many places across the western states of America. There are variations in the styles of wrapping and folding that are used, and it appears from radiocarbon dating that they were made in many places across the region for at least 1,700 years. They offer a look at the people who lived in the area in the past and some of the ways that they lived. Were these toys, or perhaps they were pieces of art or used for religious purposes? What do you think? Go ahead and have all your opinions in the comments section down below, because I know that you want to. Number 15, uranium mine. If you've not yet felt even remotely terrified by the stuff that I've shown you from the Grand Canyon discoveries, then this next thing may actually be the one that gives you a mild sense of concern. This is the really alarming trend in uranium mining in a region that is not only the most extraordinary geological landscape possible, but is also home to at least 11 Native American tribes and is a literal national park. Yes, mining for uranium, that is the extremely deadly radioactive junk used in nuclear power production and nuclear weapons, is being done around the outside of the park boundaries. But the thing with uranium and its pollution is that it doesn't really care about boundaries when it's leaking into the earth, or contaminating the water supply, or causing untold long-term damage to the natural environment. Not to mention the people and the animals that live there. The Grand Canyon National Park Service is working to keep uranium mining out of the park itself. You would think that this place at least would have a degree of protection from this kind of stuff, but the almighty dollar and its associated greed knows no bounds. Uranium mining near the Grand Canyon began in the 1950s in a place known as Orphan Mine. This is just 2 miles from the Grand Canyon Village, and there have been no fewer than 8 uranium mines all around the Grand Canyon National Park.
Damn.
One, which is in operation today, is threatening the springs inside the Grand Canyon with contamination.
It's me. Cheez-It made it chip. Baked with 100% real cheese. Cheez-It snapped.
We grew up in conservative Louisiana. We didn't have a lot, but we had each other. Now we're all in Brooks's world. This is Brooks, Mary Holling, me, Sarah Jane. We run in a path, and I run the show. You can take the girl out of Baton Rouge, but you can't take the Baton Rouge out of the girl. Watch out, she started this year. I'm obsessed with you. The most important, take care of your sisters. Love Thy Mater. All episodes now streaming on Hulu.
It's like they don't understand how important these places are to our planet, bro. Are you serious? Like, greed is gonna destroy this country, man. I keep saying that. And we keep getting showed example after example after example of how money just has a total disregard for this planet. Like, I just don't understand it. They doing it with the Amazon, here it is with the Grand Canyon, and it's just, I don't understand.
Huge efforts are in place to try and protect this region from the devastating impact of uranium mining. There's now a law that prevents new mining claims from being staked, but mines that already have valid existing rights are allowed to continue. It is a risky business, but hopefully the continued efforts for protection will eventually make uranium mining illegal across the whole region.
Stop canyon mining. Defend the sacred. Water is life. Like, come on, man.
Number 14, Grand Canyon Cavern Hotel. A stay at the Grand Canyon Cavern Hotel in Arizona is unlike any other boring box-shaped hotel room on Earth. This place has a suite, which it claims is the largest, deepest, darkest, quietest motel in the entire world. That's quite the claim, but they are probably right. This hotel room is over 65 million years old and located at 220 feet below the surface of the Earth. This is the largest dry cavern in the United States, and if you book this particular room, you'll have it all to yourself.
Like, I'll go visit, but stay overnight, It just don't look too comforting to me. I probably wouldn't get a good night's sleep there. Go visit it, yeah, take pictures, and then leave.
The caverns were formed 65 million years ago from the limestone, when the Grand Canyon was the site of an ancient sea that cut across North America. This place was a highlight to stop on old Route 66 and was designed to be a tourist destination. They run tours of the underground cavern as well as hotel rooms and the unique opportunity to spend the night in the cave itself. Well, what do you think? Would you like to sleep in a cave? Or would it all be just a little bit too spooky? Go ahead and get involved in the comments section down below. Number 13, Horseshoe Canyon Petroglyphs. Horseshoe Canyon is actually in an area to the west of Green River and the north of Canyonlands National Park in Utah. So, not the Grand Canyon, but, you know, never mind. It's still interesting anyway. These are the petroglyphs and pictographs of Horseshoe Canyon. In fact, this type of rock art is so well known in the area that it has its own category. It's known as Barrier Canyon style rock art. These petroglyphs, that is the art that's made on the surface of a rock by removing layers of scratching and picking and otherwise carving it. There have been humans in Horseshoe Canyon for as far back as 9000 BC. This is when Paleo-Indians were known to have hunted large mammals in the area. There is evidence that early people here hunted mastodons and mammoths across the southwest region. It's believed that Native American people lived in the canyon until about 1300 AD. The main area in which there are petroglyphs is the part of the canyon known as the Great Gallery. Here the images are well preserved and numerous. The panel of art is about 200 feet long and 15 feet high, and the art mostly depicts human-shaped figures that are life-sized and up to 7 feet tall. Number 12. Shasta Ground Sloth. A supersized sloth may not sound like the most terrifying of animals. I mean, these things are the cute and sleepy creatures that are often drawn as sweet little illustrations on greeting cards and baby clothing, aren't they? Well, the Megatherium was much less cute of a cartoon and more of a colossal carnivore. So put what you think you know about sloths to the side for a moment. Back around 5 million years ago, there was a very particular type of ground sloth that hung around in South America. These were up to 10 times the size of today's sloths, and they could weigh up to 4 tons. Yes, that's right, these things were elephant-sized. They also walked on their hind legs like people do, and this little fact makes it the largest upright walking bipedal mammal that has ever lived. Although not strict carnivores, the general shape and structure of the Megatherium would suggest that they likely hunted other animals as well as gathering food from their habitats. Although some extinct ground sloths grew as big as elephants, there's evidence of some slightly smaller ground sloths that inhabited the Grand Canyon. These were the Shasta ground sloths that lived there during the last ice age. The Grand Canyon was cooler and wetter than it is nowadays, and it was full of vegetation, which would have been a good thing for such a massive herbivore. Skulls of these creatures have been discovered in caves, and there were also pieces of fur and even sloth poo that is still stinky today. The cave is dry and kept at a stable temperature, which allowed for these things to stay remarkably well preserved for as long as 11,000 years. Weird! Number 11. Pseudoscorpions. Between 2005 and 2007, researchers were studying the stuff in a cave in the northern part of the Grand Canyon when they happened upon a couple of scorpion-type creatures that they thought might be brand new, or at least undocumented until that time. They took a further 7 years of rigorous study to be able to fully determine that they were indeed a new species, but they were not scorpions in the true sense. They were actually pseudoscorpions, because although they did look like scorpions, they did not have the tail with the venomous stinger that characterizes those species. Instead, these cave-dwelling creatures have their poisonous stinging parts in their pincers. They are also adapted to the darkness to such an extent that they don't have eyes.
Look how small they are, bro. Look like you'd be walking, exploring, taking pictures, and one shoot up your pants leg and bite you on the leg or something like that. That's why I'm looking at the size of them, right? So I can see now, if I ever venture to or visit the Grand Canyon, I'm walking around, I'm looking at the ground, all over the place, bro, because something like this can slide right up your leg.
It's creepy and still dangerous, even if they are tiny. They only measure about 0.12 inches in length, and even so, you wouldn't want to step on one in a dark cave, now would you? Number 10. The Chiricahua leopard frog. This frog species is known for its distinctive pattern of spots, which is how it got the leopard part of its name. Well, duh. These frogs can be found all across the southwest of the United States, which includes the Grand Canyon, and it was first discovered in the Chiricahua Mountains of Arizona back in the late 1800s. These days, this species is considered to be vulnerable to extinction as its water supplies are becoming more scarce and droughts are becoming more common. Its habitat is threatened, and there is a type of fungus that is destroying its natural environment in ponds and springs and other freshwater spaces. In fact, this frog, although once common across the region, is now missing from 80% of its previously known habitats. Well, the small green spotty frog is not what should scare us. The lack of it where it once thrived is, however, a terrifying prospect for the future of all life on Earth. Number 9. The Supai Village. One of the most remote communities in the whole of the United States, Super Village is inside of the Havasupai Indian Reservation in the Grand Canyon of Arizona. This tiny Native American community can only be reached by foot, horseback, or perhaps a helicopter. There are around 200 people that are living in the village, which is the capital of Havasupai Indian Reservation. The landscape in the village and the surrounding area is staggeringly beautiful. It has waterfalls and blue pools, as well as those remarkable formations of red rock. Although remote, there are opportunities for tourists to visit the village. They can take a mule ride or a trek out there, and it's possible to stay overnight and enjoy the extraordinary landscape and local culture. Nearby, there are also famous places like Mooney Falls and Havasu Falls. Number 8. E. coli. E. coli are bacteria that are found in the environment, in foods, and in the intestines of people and animals. Ew. These are actually a big group of bacteria, and most of them won't really do all that much harm. There are some that are super dangerous though, and some cause urinary tract infections, while others can cause pneumonia or other respiratory illnesses, and many others will give you a dose of the runs or even worse. So for the most part, people will generally want to avoid consuming anything that has been contaminated with E. coli, because it can make you sick, and sometimes it can make you very, very sick. A news report from back in August of 2023 revealed that E. coli bacteria had been found in water at the bottom of the canyon close to Phantom Ranch. That is the only lodging located in the bottom of the canyon. I mean, nobody wants to find E. coli anywhere, but call me old-fashioned, it seems that you probably shouldn't be going around guzzling the water that you find on the ground anywhere, even in the Grand Canyon. So boil any water that you scoop out of a puddle or whatever. Likely as not, the presence of E. coli in water also indicates the presence of poop in that water, so you know. Number 7. Salamander-like footprints.
E. coli got to do with
The oldest
shit.
fossils to have been found in the Grand Canyon are between 1,200 million years old and 740 million years old. These are called stromatolites that are created in the limestone by photosynthesizing bacteria that is known as cyanobacteria. But there are also a lot of other fossils that show the progression of evolution of life on Earth through millions and millions of years in this extraordinary part of the planet. The Coconino sandstone across the canyon was made when wind across the sand dunes about 275 million years ago deposited the sand and the rock formation began. These layers of rock now have some of the most densely fossil-filled areas. There are lizard-like salamander sorts of footprints, for example, and for some, these have given creationists a stiffy. They love to argue that they know all about science and will gleefully poke an oar into stuff that they poo-poo, like the formation of rocks over millions of years, if they can say that it was because of Noah and the flood. So, inexplicably, they reckon that these footprints could have only happened after the flood, when the sand would have been wet. Because there is no other way to moisten sand other than the means of a biblical flood. It couldn't possibly be that the Grand Canyon area was once different and had an inland sea, and that the rocks were not yet formed. These footprints, therefore, could not have been made 270 million years ago. It must have only happened 6,000 years ago. Oh, and they walked here really quickly after they got off the ark from Turkey. Because, you know, all life that walked on the land was wiped out, except that those that Noah saved in the ark. So it all seems completely reasonable now, doesn't it? I mean, who really needs science anyways? Number 6. American cheetah bones. During the last ice age, the Grand Canyon was stuffed full of creatures. The area was relatively mild in the weather department, and as such, there was a lush green area that was full of plant life in order to attract the herbivores. And what with all the herbivores wandering about there were also plenty of predators on the lookout for their next meal as well. One such predatory species was the now extinct American cheetah. These big cats actually went extinct at the end of the Pleistocene era. A discovery in the caves of the Grand Canyon was made by scientists who had been revisiting some bones that had previously been labeled as belonging to mountain lions. It turned out that these bones were actually those of American cheetah, and rather than them having expired in the caves, it seems they likely met their maker elsewhere, and their old bones were dragged into the caves by other animals who had scavenged them. How nice. Number 5. Vishnu Temple. This is a 7,533-foot elevation summit in Grand Canyon National Park in Arizona. Named somewhat incongruously for the Hindu deity Vishnu, the redeemer of the universe. It was given its moniker by a man named Clarence Dutton in 1880. This was the beginning of the naming of mountains in the Grand Canyon after mythological gods, and the mountain was named thus as Dutton said that he thought it looked like the shape of a pagoda. It still seems incongruous, but alright. The summit is made of the Permian Coconino sandstone that we've already seen in a bunch today, and Kabab limestone caprock. Depending on how you look at it, it could appear like a natural pyramid or perhaps even a pagoda, if you especially wanted it to be. But what do you think? What do you reckon a good name for this would have been? Go on and let me know your opinions in the comment section down below, if you will. Number 4. The Coconino sandstone. Well, it's turned up repeatedly in one way or another throughout today's list, so let's give this rock its very own section, shall we? The Coconino Sandstone is the formation of rock that is named after Coconino County in Arizona, which is where it's situated. The geological formation actually spreads all the way from the Colorado Plateau, across Arizona, the northwest of Colorado, and Utah and Nevada. This type of rock can be seen vividly inside the Grand Canyon, where it appears as a white cliff-forming layer in the rock. It can vary in thickness throughout the area because of other variations in the features of the geology. Prints in sand, this is what it looks like in sand. For example, it appears at only 65 feet thick at the western part of the Grand Canyon, but it is as deep as 600 feet in thickness in the middle portion of the canyon, and then it thins out again in the east to just 57 feet in thickness. The rock is comprised of fine sand made from quartz grains and a small amount of potassium and feldspar. This type of rock began formation around 275 million years ago, and it's one of the ways that geological and natural history of the Grand Canyon has been most readily viewed. The rock.
See, finding stuff like that makes me wonder, like, why
Besides going
we
live
don't
all the
see
time.
more mining, or is there going on and we just don't know about it? Because I believe that the canyon, it holds a lot of like value. You know, it could be what the aliens are looking for, what they're showing up for. Because I always believe that, you know, each planet has something of value that it mines that no other planet has. You know? So I think about that, so I'm like, maybe that's the area, the Grand Canyon, where a lot of that stuff is. You know? I don't know. I was thinking about that earlier when we were talking about when they were mining and destroying the canyon in the area and how they could be destroying the planet. I was like, it's got to be more value there as well that they're not telling us about. When you see rocks like that, it makes you think that.
Rock has preserved many structural features like fossil tracks, as we have seen already, and ripple marks, as well as rain patches and sand dune deposits. Who knew that a lump of big old rock could be so very interesting? Number 3. Grand Canyon vandalism. Why in the world would anyone want to go around vandalizing a national treasure? Well, that's beyond me. But wherever you go, there are always idiots, and for some reason, many of them seem to be incapable of controlling themselves. These two numpties were caught on camera when they decided that they should write on the sacred rocks of Moran Point at the edge of the viewpoint across the canyon. Perhaps they misread the name and thought that it was an invitation for morons to go ahead and do their thing. In fact, Moran Point was named after Thomas Moran, an artist who painted landscapes of the western United States back in the 1800s. But anyways, these two idiots were soon to be the subject of a news report in which they were accused of defacing a national monument, and they became the figureheads of stupidity. Their mothers must be so proud of them. Number 2, the Mogollon Monster. Bigfoot or Sasquatch is a legendary and incredibly shy sort of creature that is said to inhabit remote wilderness areas, mostly in North America. Bigfoot is described as a large ape-like being, and for some reason, this creature has caught the imaginations of people for centuries. Numerous alleged sightings, footprints, and blurry photographs, and they're always blurry, even now with all the HD stuff we have fueled the ongoing debate about its existence. While mainstream science dismisses the creature as a product of folklore and misidentifications, believers argue that the vast unexplored wilderness provides ample hiding places for such a creature, which is a reasonably compelling argument.
They range from about this tall to about 8 feet.
However, people have dedicated their lives to searching for Bigfoot, and still the myth remains. Well, simply a myth. It could be that this is the shyest animal ever, or, I hate to disappoint you, it could be all a load of old cobblers. But go ahead and have all your opinions about Bigfoot and this grainy, fuzzy imagery, if you will. This is the Mogollon Monster, also known as the Arizona Bigfoot. It is said to be over 7 feet tall and reported to have red eyes and be covered in long black or reddish-brown hair, and is said to be very, very smelly indeed. The Arizona...
Or maybe they found them. They just not letting us in those cages. And remember, they only let us in one cage. So maybe they did find them back up in there. Who knows or who can verify it? Until a whistleblower comes forward.
Bigfoot has been reportedly seen all along the Mogollon Rim, hence where the moniker of the creature comes from. Number 1. Archaeological sites. The Grand Canyon is a place that is home to masses upon masses of history. It's not only the place of hugely significant geological discoveries, but it is also the location of many an archaeological site that gives historians insight into human history that existed in the area. One such excavation began back in 2008 when archaeologists began to dig at 2 sites that were located along the Colorado River.
This has been a natural break here.
Over the course of 3 years, they then uncovered masses of evidence of human habitation along the Colorado River corridor in the Grand Canyon. In fact, they found evidence that would suggest that the area had been inhabited by as many as 6 different and very distinct groups of people over the span of 3,500 years. The canyon continues to reveal more about our own human history, as well as the bigger histories of the natural world around us.
I want some of that. That's what I ain't had in a long time.
That can teach us so many things about the vast and incredible life on our planet. That's all from our expedition into the Grand Canyon for today.
High quality ingredients, no harmful pesticides. Stonyfield Organic, good on purpose.
It's one of the great mysteries of our time.
How y'all feel about the Bermuda Triangle?
Weird going on in that area.
For centuries, it has swallowed up its victims.
I'm going down. Repeat, going down. You ever heard of 5 aircraft disappearing in one night?
Leaving many buried in an underwater graveyard.
They would explore these wrecks and find bodies at the depths of the ocean.
But is the story more legend than truth?
If you put all the facts down and put it down as nonfiction, people wouldn't believe you.
And what can science tell us?
There's control of the airplane that went into a spiral dive and would end up with a disaster.
About the mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle.
But people still, like, it's still planes and stuff that end up at the bottom. So, I don't know.
Off the coast of southern Florida, the United States Coast Guard has been searching the skies and seas for a twin-engine private plane with 3 passengers on board. Shortly after 11 a.m., it disappeared from air traffic control radars.
There was an aircraft, a Piper Aztec, that was lost within the area called the Bermuda Triangle this past June of 2005. And the circumstances of that flight are still fairly sketchy. It was a Part 91 flight, which means it's a private flight conducted under instrument flight rules, which means the pilot is in contact with the radar facility for the entire duration of the flight. Coast Guard would launch some of their resources in the area, both in the form of helicopters and in form of ships. And any other aircraft that might be transiting the area would be asked to either listen for an ELT, an emergency location transmitter, or if they were in VFR conditions, to look for possible survivors.
After an exhaustive 24-hour search, no wreckage, no evidence, no survivors are found. The search is suspended.
Unfortunately, that happens, and some searches will go on for a longer duration, but in general, a search for a light aircraft that disappears off radar in the middle of the ocean, it's probably 1 or 2 day search at the most, and then those resources are recalled.
This recent tragedy is just the latest in a string of mysteries to unfold over what some call the most treacherous waters on the planet. 500,000 square miles, sometimes referred to as the Bermuda Triangle.
The Bermuda Triangle is where planes take off, never to be seen again, where ships sail over the horizon, never heard from again, yachts disappear from the face of the earth for no known reason. And it's probably the core motivation for more sea stories, legends, and tales of the ocean than any other place in all of the oceans on the earth.
The Bermuda Triangle is an area of the Atlantic Ocean that runs from Miami southeast to Puerto Rico, northeast to Bermuda, and heads west back to Miami. For centuries, the area has been plagued by the unexplained disappearances of planes and ships.
The area known as the Bermuda Triangle has a history, and then I guess when something happens out here, it's magnified.
The triangle is so exotic to people and so attractive because it's the last place on Earth that is undiscovered. Everything else has been physically discovered.
As early as the 16th and 17th centuries, European explorers have reported seeing strange lights and finding ships floating intact, but devoid of crew. Author Rob Simone finds this a common thread woven through the triangle's folklore.
But when it comes to the subject of ghost ships, yes, there has been cases reported of ghost ships from many different wayfaring cultures.
In 1780, the warship General Gates disappears. Yet no British vessel claims to sink her. During the 19th century, at least 3 more stories of ghost ships surface. Cargo and merchant vessels are found silently riding the waves without anyone on board.
I think there are things that happen out at sea that can only be described in terms of mythology or poetry, because they go beyond the limits of our rational thinking.
Throughout the 20th century and still today, commercial, military, and private aircraft have vanished without a trace. The most famous case is that of Flight 19, when 5 Navy planes disappeared in 1945.
Nigga, 5 at one time?
In his 2004 book about the Bermuda Triangle, John Quasar suggests that the number of mysterious cases are countless.
The old line is that there's 20 aircraft that have disappeared and 50 vessels that have vanished in the history of the Triangle. And you have some websites, you have some books maybe still repeating that, but actually there's about 200 aircraft disappearances in the last 50 years. And you count the yachts and smaller vessels, close to probably 1,000, 2,000, who knows?
Damn.
Explanations for what has caused these tragedies run from the scientific to the paranormal.
The main theories to explain the Bermuda Triangle have been UFOs. They've been very popular. Power sources from Edgar Casey's Atlantis. Sea serpents, electromagnetic phenomenon, which bends time and space or can just disintegrate an aircraft or a ship. Many natural causes, mini canes, subsea earthquakes, plain old clumsy pilots and shipmasters. There have been many exotic theories that run the gamut from the very prosaic to the very complex.
The U.S. government officially denies there is anything unusual about the area.
Yeah, but they do.
In fact, the U.S. Board of Geographic Names doesn't even recognize the name Bermuda Triangle.
What?
From my understanding, any branch of government has gone on record to say that there is a mystery happening here. No, it's really not their business to do so, and it's really not in their best interest to do it either. There's a combination of factors at work in this particular area. Beyond the myths, beyond the legends, beyond the speculations, it is a dangerous and mysterious part of the ocean.
But are there other explanations that have not yet been fully explored?
Well, I think certainly you can explain a lot of the disappearances due to the weather. The inclement weather that comes in very quickly and the sailors that are not prepared for it, whether they had too much sail up or they ran into some strong winds from a large power hurricane or whatever. But I also think there are things out there that we haven't investigated enough, like the bubbling of a gas from the ocean, which could reduce the buoyancy of ships. Certainly that could affect whether they make it to port or not.
Despite scientific explanations, the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle is as strong today as it's ever been. The legend began in the era of Columbus, but did not take hold until the last half of the 20th century. That's when new theories erupted about the Triangle's most perplexing disappearance.
Flight 19, which is probably going to be the most talked of mystery of the Triangle.
Sir, I'm going down. I'm going down. Repeat, going down.
December 5th, 1945, 5 pilots and their 9 crew members set out on a routine training mission. Their flight plan will take them to the heart of the Bermuda Triangle. Within hours after their takeoff from Fort Lauderdale, the planes and the crew disappear without a trace, never to be found.
The famous Flight 19 of the World War II era out of Fort Lauderdale has been hyped over the years. Again, it's one of those stories that has been built upon as it's been passed around.
When it comes to the Flight 19 legend, I seriously doubt that were it not for this particular case, we simply would not have a Bermuda Triangle mystery to this day.
It was the disappearance of Flight 19 that spurred some writers to search back in time for other unexplained incidents in and over the waters of the Triangle. They would discover ancient tales of people and even whole ships lost at sea.
Long before it got its name as Bermuda Triangle, there were legends of the Sea of Doom, graveyard in the Atlantic, Sargasso graveyard. They all call to mind an area where ships mysteriously disappeared or were found derelict. So when Flight 19 disappeared in 1945, writers made the connection between these old legends.
In 1950, the Associated Press published an article that compiled many of the region's unexplained incidents. Other news reports followed.
Then in 1952, it finally got its name as the Watery Triangle by George Extant, who wrote an article in Fate magazine. And throughout the 1950s, it was known as the Deadly Triangle.
Bermuda Triangle's become such a legend because there's so much hype about it. Bermuda Triangle really didn't become much of anything until 1964.
That's when journalist Vincent Gaddis coined the phrase Bermuda Triangle in a magazine article for Argosy. The legend began to spread. Media coverage of the Bermuda Triangle mostly relayed stories of vanished planes and ships. Few forwarded any theories to explain the mysterious disappearances. But in 1974, 10 years after the Argosy article, a book called The Bermuda Triangle, An Incredible Saga of Unexplained Disappearances, was written by Charles Berlitz.
Berlitz's book was more or less theories based on the incidents, while other books were mostly just a compilation of incidents without any insight whatsoever.
Berlitz's book was the first to suggest that disappearances, like Flight 19, were caused by mysterious energy anomalies, aliens, and even the lost city of Atlantis.
His book sold 5 million copies in hardback, and that's what really gave the area its enigma, and everybody wanted to talk about the triangle.
About the same time, filmmaker Richard Weiner produced a documentary about the phenomenon. In it, he gave the region a more ominous name.
Well, I like the name the Devil's Triangle better because Bermuda Triangle sounds too much like a honeymoon with a mother-in-law or ex-boyfriend going along.
Weiner takes issue with more than the name of the region. He also questions its shape.
The Bermuda Triangle is an area, they say it's a triangle, but it's not really, it's really a trapezoid. The trapezoid is a rectangle with no two sides or two angles the same.
His film, chronicling the area's bizarre disturbances and unexplained tragedies, became an instant cult classic.
I thought, well, geez, I'm gonna do a film on this. So I was doing a lot of freelance work, and every place I went around this area, supposedly the triangle, whether Bermuda or Puerto Rico or somewhere in the Caribbean, I would shoot some background footage for this movie. And I had it all pieced together, and then I started researching and getting people that were involved in it, firsthand eyewitnesses. I mean, the way they told it, these people lived through it. And they started, one of them was telling about ships that sailed off, never to be seen again, airplanes that flew into the clouds, never to come back, yachts that sailed off, never to be heard from.
Books and movies established the Bermuda Triangle in pop culture. They also reported that the area's unexplained incidents could be traced back for centuries. Early sailors crossing the Atlantic feared a region known as the Sargasso Sea.
In the Bermuda Triangle, there are a number of escarpments, they call them, and there's deep channels. These channels are a mile deep. You have the Sargasso Sea, and you go down to the abyssal plains. Those are 20,000 feet deep, so you get a perspective of the change in the topography of the bottom.
For centuries, ships have sailed into the Sargasso and been immobilized by a lack of wind and motionless current.
The earliest alleged Bermuda Triangle incident goes as far back as Christopher Columbus in 1492, and they got into an area known as the Sargasso Sea, which is kind of a large circling area with a lot of seaweed and clutter and things like that.
It was these massive deposits of seaweed, waste, and red krill that ancient mariners and Sargasso travelers often mistook for sea serpents.
The triangle is not a superstition of seafarers or in the ports. The enigma of the triangle can be found as far back as Columbus's log, who was the first to sail the area. He noted that on 3 occasions, the compass pointed in the wrong direction, 11 1/4 degrees off from the evening reading to the morning reading, which was unexplainable. They also noted that the sea rose without any wind whatsoever, which shocked them all. And then on the eve of discovering the New World, an unexplained light levitated on the horizon, and then rose up and then vanished.
And you have to think about that for a second. This man was a seasoned sailor. There wasn't much that goes on in the night sky that he or his crew hadn't already seen. So for him to make such a special notation about this event, that speaks volumes.
However, not everyone considers Columbus to have been a masterful sailor.
Fuck Columbus.
And of course, when they were crossing the ocean, they were legitimately afraid of what they were getting into because everybody thought the world was flat and they were going to drop off at the edge. And one of the stories is that Columbus saw a UFO. And another one is he saw a strange light at night when they were way out in the ocean. My research on that was Columbus did make a note in his log about a bright light overhead, and all the historians have always assumed that that was a meteorite that flashed across the sky. And another part of the story about Columbus is that the compass was acting strange.
And you know, the tools that Columbus had basically was he had a compass, and he had a astrolabe, and he had a log, and those things were imprecise.
If the strange occurrences witnessed by Columbus's crew might be explained so simply, then what can account for the ships found in the Bermuda Triangle with their entire crews missing? Miami's inland waters are choppy, and the forecast calls for 6-foot-high waves. Either undaunted or unaware, Dan Burak, aboard his cabin cruiser, the Witchcraft, set sail with his friend Patrick Hogan to view the colorful Christmas lights draped across the beachfront. Moments later, their plans change.
Burak radioed the Coast Guard that he needed a tow back in. Something had happened, either he hit something or lost power. He was well noted for his safety precautions. He had built-in flotation in the vessel. All of the seat cushions were floatable.
In Miami, the Coast Guard immediately dispatched a rescue chief.
They were there at 9:18, and there was no trace of the Witchcraft. They scoured the whole area. They even searched 1,500 miles out to sea. It disappeared. You can't say anything else. It should not have disappeared. It should have been found. It is simply part of the enigma of the triangle.
Disappearances such as that of the Witchcraft seemingly are nothing new here.
I don't know how many instances there are where people are not recovered from having some difficulty in the triangle.
For at least 3 centuries, ships and their passengers have apparently vanished. Passed down, these legends caused 19th century seamen to nickname the area we now know as the Bermuda Triangle as the Sea of Doom and the Graveyard of the Atlantic. Treasure hunter Madeline Burnside has learned how to navigate these underwater cemeteries.
The Florida Keys become a real shipwreck graveyard. Shipwrecks here are actually piled up. You locate a 19th century wreck, and that will have some interest, but as you dig down, there'll be an 18th century wreck, and under that, a 17th century wreck.
One of the earliest claims of an unexplained disappearance in the Triangle happened in 1780, when the United States warship, the General Gates, was inexplicably lost.
The ship simply disappeared between far-flung ports, and no one knew what happened to it.
Many other mysteries purported to have taken place inside the Triangle are similar in nature. In 1840, the French ship the Rosalie was found adrift with its cargo intact. But as for the crew, it's not that they were found dead, but that they were never found at all.
I have an expiration date for a reason, you know.
Introducing the Derm Advanced Eye Lift. Potent, clinically tested skincare helps remodel the look of eyes for a targeted transformation across 4 dimensions. The Eye Lift. See results in 4 weeks. Only from Estee Lauder. Travel can be a nightmare. Luckily, you rented your car on Turo. Skip the rental counter with Turo. Rent just about any car, just about anywhere.
We don't really identify mental health as the energy that it deserves. And I think I can speak for a lot of men in my community or culture. You know, when you talk about mental health, it's always been associated or tied to weakness. It's always been aligned with something negative. But for me, mental health, as I grow into a man, a friend, a brother, has been something that you really have to give the awareness to it that it definitely deserves. I think healthy masculinity is awareness. Awareness to the degree where when you are aware of your emotions, emotionally intelligent to you and others.
I think the biggest thing with men, when you're able to open up and use your words to articulate how you feel emotionally, I think that's healthy masculinity to me, is just being in control of you, and everything else will flourish from you being disciplined and controlling your emotions and controlling yourself. So.
Larry Cush, author of The Bermuda Triangle Solved, is skeptical about the account of the Rosalie.
Nobody has presented any proof that it's a mystery. In the case of the Rosalie in 1840, it was found drifting about in the Bahamas somewhere, and tried as hard as I could contacting all the sources that I could in the Bahamas and Lloyd's of London and all these places. I could not find any evidence that any ship named the Rosalie had a problem in there, that ship ever existed.
But there are many strange stories of lost ships connected to the Triangle.
The Mary Celeste in, I believe it was 1872, was found abandoned at sea, and the usual thing with an abandoned ship. There was food on the table, it was in perfect order, and nobody could understand why it had been abandoned at sea, and the people were never found.
Bound for Genoa, the Mary Celeste carried a crew of 10. When the Celeste was found on the 4th of December, the search party discovered cups of coffee, still warm, set upon a table, undisturbed. While the Mary Celeste case is documented, Larry Cush claims it is part of a Bermuda Triangle myth.
The Mary Celeste is not at all a mystery of the Bermuda Triangle, because it happened about 3,000 miles to the east.
Regardless, stories of doomed ships and crews that vanish dominate Triangle lore. If at least some of these cases are true, what could be the cause?
Piracy has been around as long as ships have set sail. Out on the high seas, it's every man for himself. That's part of the excitement. It's also part of the danger.
According to experts, the area of the Bermuda Triangle was a favorite playground for some of history's most notorious pirates.
Right around the Keys, and especially the Bermuda Triangle, the pirates were sailing around this area because it's directly through the trade route from South America, Latin America, Cartagena, through to Europe. The most common pirates around the area were Blackbeard, which everybody knows about, Calico Jack, who was most famous for having the 2 women pirates, and also Black Caesar.
Some of these ships might have run afoul of some pretty nasty pirates. Their ships could have been plundered, their people sold into slavery, or worse, thrown off the side.
Another theory floated is that a ship's crew could have been wiped out by diseases carried by slaves.
But there is also a particular thing that happened fairly commonly, and that is that both the crew and the Africans would contract ophthalmia, which renders you blind. There are known cases of both the crew and of course the Africans dying in huge numbers. A lot of people freaked out and really just jumped into the ocean because they were terrified. They didn't want to live day-to-day blind.
But neither disease nor piracy explains one of the most unusual Triangle legends. On March 4th, 1918, the Cyclops, a 542-foot Navy collier, left Barbados bound for Norfolk, Virginia. On board was a crew of 309 men.
USS Cyclops was coming up from South America, and it had a load of iron ore on it. It was a U.S. Navy ship, and it disappeared. And that added to the story of the Devil's Triangle and the Bermuda Triangle.
Strangely, although the Cyclops was among the first ships ever radio equipped, it never issued so much as even the most preliminary SOS.
I can't come out with the right adjectives to describe what happened aboard that ship. If you put all the facts down and put it down as nonfiction, people wouldn't believe you. They say, this has to be fiction, this can't be true.
The Navy suspected the boat was attacked by an enemy submarine. But many years later, another fantastic theory emerged to explain the loss of the Cyclops and other missing vessels.
I think one of the most famous fabled dangers of the Bermuda Triangle is the infamous giant squid. This giant thing that comes up, it's got a hand-like form. It clasps the tiny ship, which is actually a huge ship that is now terrified this thing is even more giant, and it pulls it down for purposes unknown. But that is part of the whole myth.
While at first glance it sounds far-fetched, the existence of a species of cephalopod called the giant octopus is no myth.
In 1896, a carcass was found on the beach in St. Augustine by two boys, and they reported it to Yale University, and it would have been 200 feet long.
At the time, scientists identified the carcass as a giant octopus. Based in part on this finding, in 1918, the Literary Digest speculated that a giant octopus might have seized upon the Cyclops and brought it down with its tentacles. The St. Augustine carcass turned out to be a section of whale. Dr. Jeff Marlioff studies octopus behavior at the Vancouver Aquarium.
Giant octopus only occur in the northeast Pacific Ocean. The kind of octopus that might occur in the region of the Bermuda Triangle would be a very small species, and it would most likely be associated with rocky drop-offs from the islands, not with the center area of the Bermuda Triangle, which is basically sand bottom. Now, when people talk about giant octopuses attacking boats, it likely stems from these very old stories from the days of whaling and sailing ship exploration, when there were engravings showing some kind of tentacled animal attacking small rowboats and such. Most likely this would not be an octopus. The only species that could conceivably attack a small boat would be relatives of octopuses, the giant squids.
Ah, the legend of the giant squid. Actually, it's not a legend. They exist. Some of them over 150 feet long, if you can imagine this.
In October 2005, Japanese scientists made a startling discovery off the coast of Tokyo, near the Bonin Islands. A giant squid, close to 30 feet in length. Researchers from Japan's National Science Museum identified the creature as an architeuthis, a rare species that seizes upon bait with extreme force and violence.
We don't know what lies under the depths of the ocean. Could very well be a giant creature that is particular to that part of the ocean. Maybe its food source is contained there. We don't know. But it could explain some of the ships that were mysteriously lost.
Giant sea monsters are not the only theory attempting to explain disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle. Some believe that the answer may lie far beneath the surface of the Atlantic Ocean, in the lost city of Atlantis. Among the more creative explanations for strange occurrences within the boundaries of the Bermuda Triangle is one that has roots in ancient Greece, with the lost city of Atlantis.
Atlantis is a story told by Plato approximately 400 BC. It is a story of a civilization that he described as being larger than Asia and Africa combined, that sank into the Atlantic Ocean outside the Pillars of Hercules. He described it in great detail. It had giant palaces and gold-encrusted decorations and springs that ran hot and cold and running water, and it grew all kinds of stuff.
But Atlantis met with a swift and violent demise.
It actually described an island continent of Atlantis. And that continent exploded volcanically, and then they described it having this catastrophe, a natural catastrophe of volcanic explosions and sinking into the sea in a very short period of time.
The mystery of where the lost city of Atlantis lies has inspired historians and fortune seekers alike. In the 1930s, the famous clairvoyant Edgar Cayce believed he had solved the mystery when he was contacted by the soul of an Atlantean while in a trance.
Edgar Cayce was a prophet, a visionary, who lost his voice when he was a teenager and couldn't talk anymore. And so he communicated by telling people in this hoarse whisper what he had dreamt. And he had all these dreams, and what started on the basis of his dreams was this enormous society that still exists.
Cayce was convinced that the lost civilization lay under the sea, where the island of Bimini now stands, sitting in the eye of the Bermuda Triangle.
Cayce said that Atlantis existed as a civilization 50,000 years ago, and it was going to rise up from the sea in 1968 in the Bahamas.
Join millions growing their career with Coursera. Start learning today.
At Marshalls, our buyers hustle 24/7 to get you great deals and the good stuff.
Instead of letting its value go down, recycle it. Not only are you helping the environment, you get paid too. Recycle the mess, wait and earn less. Get a free quote at ecoatm.com.
Every second, it's with you. Can you feel it? Can you beat it? Take on time with Rubik's Pulse. Install before it lights out. Make your move.
Bill Donato dives in the waters around Bimini in search of artifacts from Atlantis.
Most people don't realize that the Bahamas, for example, were a very large landmass of thousands of square miles before the end of the Pleistocene. They're around 9,600. In fact, the islands out there would be 7 miles from shore, as opposed to what they are now. And in the Bahamas, Bimini would literally have been a mountain. It would be the highest point.
If there was indeed an advanced civilization that sank into the sea, then its technology would also have been lost to the watery depths. According to Cayce and his followers, powerful Atlantean crystals that generate light-emitting energy may still remain buried.
According to Cayce, the great crystal itself, the way he describes it, suggested it was something that was cylindrical. Yeah, he found a quartz source that was growing near something that was naturally radioactive.
Could it be that the power these crystals emit is so strong that it could cause ships and planes to disappear? As far-fetched as this may seem, reports of magnetic anomalies in the Bermuda Triangle have been recorded, lending another thread of possibility to those who believe.
Well, I believe that if there was an Atlantis, and they were advanced, that they probably did have some way to harness this energy.
But not everyone is convinced.
I don't know how somebody would think that Atlantis would be causing this. I don't know if there are like death rays from Atlantis or something. So I have never been able to figure out why anybody would think that Atlantis has anything to do with disappearing ships and airplanes.
To prove that Atlantis really does exist at this site, Edgar Casey's followers point to a long, smooth configuration of rocks that appear to have been fitted together by human hands. A 200-foot-long structure known to some as the Bimini Wall and others as the Bimini Road.
The Bimini Wall is, as originally discovered, was a series of what looked like large paving stones underwater. And scuba divers found these things and could not explain them in geological terms, and so they therefore made the assumption that this must be somehow related to some underwater city, perhaps Atlantis.
In order to investigate the theory that a magnetic force emanating from Atlantis could cause planes and ships to disappear in the triangle, one has first to determine whether the story of Atlantis is real in the first place. At the United States Geological Survey in St. Petersburg, Florida, geologist Eugene Shin has spent more than 30 years studying the formations near Bimini.
Back in the mid-70s, I got involved in looking at the famous road or wall, depending on what you call it, off of Bimini. Many people thought that was something to do with Atlantis. I would admit that when you see it underwater, it's very impressive and has a man-made look to it.
Shin bored down into the structure and took core samples from several parts of the wall. Back in his lab, he analyzed the rocks to determine their age, makeup, and origin.
We sliced these cores so that we could see if the bedding was dipping that way or this way or so on. Then we x-rayed them to make the bedding show up better. What we did not find is any evidence of anything made by humans.
But those who believe in the lost city of Atlantis are undeterred by the findings.
I do have belief in the facts that Atlantis is a historical fact. Although we don't have artifacts, I believe eventually it will be proven historically that Atlantis did exist. But so far as being the principal civilization that's called Atlantis, I don't believe that the Bahamas was that place.
If Atlantis does not exist under Bimini, then the theory of energy crystals disrupting ships and planes in the triangle may be nothing more than fantasy.
The Bermuda Triangle and Atlantis have really nothing in common except that they're both mythological, made-up stories.
But there is nothing mythological about the single most persistent case used to substantiate claims of a Bermuda Triangle mystery.
Both of my compliments are out!
The disappearance of Flight 19. December 5th, 1945. As the afternoon sun begins its journey to the west, the crew of the ill-fated Flight 19 takes off toward the east on the first leg of their sortie. The official weather observations from Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale, Florida, indicate winds are starting to gust, blowing toward the east at over 30 knots, and clouds are forming in various altitudes.
When they took off, the wind, we had prevailing winds, trade winds coming from the southeast, and that's our prevailing winds in South Florida and the Bahamas. But during their flight, we got a weather change.
The 5 aircraft, Grumman Avenger torpedo bombers, are piloted by Ensign Joseph Bossy, Second Lieutenant James Gerber, Captain George Stivers, Captain Joseph Powers Jr., and Lieutenant Charles Taylor, the flight leader. Each plane carries a pilot, bombardier, and gunner, except for one, whose gunner, Alan Kozner, is curiously unable to make the flight.
He had a strange feeling that he didn't want to fly that day, and so he begged off and got out of that flight.
The mission calls for the team to fly east for 56 miles towards Hen and Chicken Shoals, part of the Bahama Island chain, to conduct a low-level bombing exercise. David White was a flight instructor stationed at Fort Lauderdale during the time of the Flight 19 tragedy.
Flight 19, on the day that they turned up missing, was on a routine navigational training flight. And that is to fly out to the Hen and Chicken Islands, about 60 miles straight east of here. And we had a sunken ship out there that we used to drop miniature smoke bombs on. And so as instructor, I would fly down low to the water, circle around, and score the students as they dropped their smoke bombs.
The first signs of trouble appear just 2 hours into the flight.
Howard! But hey, get your compass free!
Flight 19 mystery is that the flight instructor, he said that his compasses were out. Well, if you're in a thunderstorm, there were thunderstorms in the area. A thunderstorm will make a magnetic compass spin, and you just kind of lose control.
This is not.
But none of the airmen report a storm. The 5 pilots compare compass readings, but none can agree on the direction they are heading.
I don't know where we are. We must have gotten lost in that last turn.
Near Flight 19's operational base in Fort Lauderdale, a pilot overhears Taylor and Powers debating their present course. Lieutenant Robert Cox tries to lend assistance.
This is Northstar Tango 7-4. Later, boat calling Powers. Please identify yourself so that someone can help you. Both of my compasses are out. I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I'm over land, but it's broken.
Cox tells Taylor to orient his plane by positioning the western sun on his port side, and instructs Taylor to lead the squadron northward as Cox flies to the south.
But it was a very unusual circumstance. I've flown over that flight so many times, that route, and there's no way that when you're out over the ocean here off the east coast of Florida and you get lost, well, go to the west, fly west, toward the sun. He didn't do it.
I know where I am now. I'm at 2,300 feet. Do not come after me. Roger, you're at 2,300 feet. I'm coming to meet you anyhow.
Lieutenant Cox flies around the southern tip of the mainland and the Florida Keys in conditions described as CAVU, or Clear and Visibility Unlimited. He sees no sign of the 5 Avengers, but hears intermittent radio transmissions from Flight 19 growing fainter. To the east, the skies over the Bahamas are shrouded in low clouds.
I think a well-prepared flight would not get into that kind of confusion. If you're depending on what you see down below when you're looking at the Bahamas or the Florida Keys, and if that is your crutch or your dependence for navigation, then I can see where things could get very confused.
The Navy's Air-Sea Rescue Task Unit overhears a transmission between the Flight 19 pilots that reveals at least one of them thinks they are flying in the wrong direction. Radio operators up and down the Florida coast strain to hear the pilots' fading voices.
Okay, once again. This is Foxtrot Tango 28.
This, what you might call the tragedy of errors, rather than the comedy of errors, at least 1 or 2 of the pilots of the planes into flight were heard on the air saying, well, let's fly due west. We certainly can do no worse if we're lost than flying due west. They didn't say all of that, but They were urging the flight leader to get the flight on a heading of due west, and that would have been smart.
Minute by minute, radio operators try every possible frequency to make contact with Flight 19. Only the distant voices of the pilots are heard, questioning their course, their fuel, their fate.
When the first man gets his last gallon of gas, we'll all land in the water together. Does everyone understand? Sir, can you repeat that?
At 7:04, the last transmission is received from Flight 19. The pilots are never heard from again. Within minutes, the Navy dispatched a Martin Mariner with a crew of 13 to search for the missing planes. But soon, radio communication with the Mariner is also lost.
So this added to the mystery. Now they had this search plane that was also missing.
The SS Gaines Mill, patrolling off the waters of Cape Canaveral, witnesses a giant fireball slowly fall from the sky. The ship races to the point of impact, only to find an oil slick shimmering on the surface. Additional search and rescue units are deployed. Franklin Daly is one of the hundreds who try to find the missing aviators.
And we spent about 4 hours just combing the ocean, just making tracks up and down the Atlantic Ocean to see if we could see what we presume might be some wreckage or life preserver or something from one of those aircraft. We never saw anything.
So in one night, 6 aircraft and 27 naval personnel simply vanished without trace.
The search for Flight 19 lasts 5 days, ending on December 10th, 1945. A board of investigation immediately gathers radio logs, transcripts, charts, weather data, and testimonies to determine what went wrong. On January 24th, they conclude that the primary reason for the disappearance of Flight 19 is the confusion of flight leader Charles Taylor. But objections to the determinations from the pilots' families and naval personnel initiates a review of the facts by the Navy's Judge Advocate General, or JAG. On August 23, 1946, the official determination is reversed, stating that Lieutenant Taylor had been blamed erroneously for the unfortunate incident, and the 5 planes disappeared as a result of causes or reasons unknown.
Flight 19 is so famous because whoever heard of 5 aircraft disappearing in one night? At the time, the popular press associated so many dramatic lines with the flight. Supposedly the last the words coming from it are, "I am lost." And after that, there was nothing ever reported, so it was quite dramatic the way it was reported.
As far as Bermuda Triangle mysteries goes, Flight 19 is by far the biggest mystery. It was a very confusing incident.
What really happened to Flight 19 and the 27 men lost that December night? Is there more to the story than pilot error? Were there mysterious forces at work? What can scientific investigation discover about the fate of Flight 19? Like a needle in a haystack, the answers are out there, hidden somewhere in the Bermuda Triangle. In a region plagued by shipwrecks and plane crashes, one 1945 accident begs a closer look.
Flight 19 is one of these cases which, regardless of which theory people go for, to a great extent still defies explanation. And, it wasn't just one aircraft that vanished, it was a whole fleet of aircraft.
So what is the most likely cause of the most legendary of all Bermuda Triangle mysteries? Aviation accident investigator Peter Leffey has examined all available flight records and reconstructed the facts of Flight 19 minute by minute. The first unusual notation comes from before the squadron even left the ground.
Well, the significant aspect of that is that the flight commander, Lieutenant Taylor, asked to be relieved of his obligation for the flight. He arrived at the briefing room late. The flight was late taking off because of his tardiness, and it was never explained why he wanted to be relieved of command that day, whether or not he had any psychological problems, any stress on him, he wasn't feeling well medically.
But the flight leader's request was denied. Other than Taylor's questionable health, he was an accomplished pilot.
Taylor, who was the flight commander, had approximately 2,500 hours. He was a well-qualified pilot, although he wasn't particularly familiar with this area. The other pilots all had in the range of 300 hours, which we would all consider quite a low-time pilot.
Already behind schedule, Taylor and his students finally depart on the first leg of their mission.
Flight 19 was a military training flight that left Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and went out to the east over the Atlantic Ocean to do some bombing practice.
Afterwards, the flight continues to the east.
Then turn to a north-northwest heading, which would bring him up this way for a fixed number of miles, and then make a turn to the southwest and like this, which would have brought him right back into Fort Lauderdale.
The training mission includes a basic navigation exercise learned by all pilots, ironically called dead reckoning.
Well, dead reckoning navigation is a form of navigation where you use time, speed, and distance. So it doesn't rely on ground-based radio navigation aids.
A critical component to planning such a flight is consideration of prevailing wind currents.
Well, the winds were primarily from the southwest or west-southwest, so they would actually add airspeed or ground speed to the flight. So they might have been getting in the area of 20 to 25 knots of push, and that push would have moved them even further out than they were anticipating.
Less than 2 hours into the mission, the first sign of trouble. Commander Taylor senses something is wrong.
At some point, either during the second leg or during the third leg, when they turn to the north-northwest on a heading of, I believe, 340.
Did the taco gods just wink at me? Standing stuffed tacos, well, golly gee. They whispered secrets made of cheese that disappeared in a cloud of beans. Paso, the old El Paso.
Achieving real results for your business starts with asking the right people the right questions. Create expertly prompted surveys with powerful AI that analyzes data for you for insights that change everything.
Holy.
SurveyMonkey.
As a therapist myself, I know how important it is to be able to have someone that you can talk to about your problems, to bounce ideas off of, process your traumas and your stressors, especially when life is getting out of hand. And although everyone should have a therapist like that they can talk to, sometimes it's difficult to find the right person who's the right fit for you and your needs. Thankfully, BetterHelp has an online quiz and tool that streamlines the entire process for you to better help you find a therapist that's going to meet your need by asking you what your preferences are, what your experiences are, what kind of therapy style you're looking for, and that way it can match you with the best therapist specifically for you. And thanks to BetterHelp's online platform, actually communicating with your therapist, whether it be via messaging, phone call, video chat, is incredibly easy. You can communicate with your therapist at times that are the most convenient for you so that you can have flexibility to communicate with them not only any time, but also anywhere. Whether that be at home, at a park, in your car, whatever's most convenient for you, things are flexible so you can get the help you need when you need it. So if you feel like you're on hard times, you can try out BetterHelp for yourself.
46 degrees true, that Taylor became convinced that they somehow had made a wrong turn.
I don't know where we are. We must have gotten lost in that last turn.
Taylor next reports problems with his compass.
Howard! What the heck is your compass read?
Pilots are typically trained, particularly in instrument conditions, to rely on their instruments and not to fly by the seat of the pants.
Without a compass, Taylor relies on the horizon and landmarks for direction.
Both of my compasses are out. I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I'm over land, but it's broken.
He was seeing land, and he had been formerly based in Miami, had been familiar with the Keys. He said, we're over the Keys. I don't know how we got here, but we're over the Florida Keys. And at this point in time, he's so disoriented that he thinks he's in the Gulf of Mexico.
According to radio transmission transcripts, Taylor's confusion about his location is overheard by another pilot flying above the mainland.
This is Foxtrot Tango 74. Later, both calling Howard. Please identify yourself so that someone can help here.
Flight number 74, commanded by Lieutenant Cox. And part of the conversation was that Taylor communicated to Cox that he felt he was over the Florida Keys and he needed to find his way back to Fort Lauderdale.
Communication between the pilots is fading.
Repeat once again. This is Foxtrot Tango 28.
In the case of these Flight 19 flying easterly out into the ocean, it should be obvious that the farther you got away from the receiving station, the weaker the signal would get. Eventually, you get out of range of the station and you don't receive a signal at all.
And as Cox flew south, the transmissions between the two aircraft became weaker and weaker. They were diverging rather than converging. And that is significant evidence that helps us be sure that Taylor was never anywhere near the Florida Keys.
Radio operators on the mainland mark Flight 19's position far from the Gulf Coast of Florida.
According to the triangulation that they determined from radio triangulation, he was somewhere out here in the Atlantic Ocean, about up in this area, I would say.
These reports indicate that Taylor was flying over the Bahama Islands and mistook them for the Florida Keys. In radio logs, Peter Leffey has discovered a clue that illustrates Taylor's worsening confusion.
This is MT-28. I read you. Not clear, but I read you.
When he started calling himself MT-28 instead of FT-28, that was a clear indication that his mental function was starting to diminish, and he's under the belief that he's somewhere where he isn't. And all of these things could be consistent with his mental status not being up to par, and that relates back to his asking to be relieved of command on that particular day.
Could Taylor's health have actually impaired his ability to fly the plane? Pilot fatigue and confusion is a very real problem in aviation. Ronald Oberholzer is the chief instructor for American Flying Academy. He demonstrates a life-threatening condition called spatial disorientation, which can occur when a pilot's vision becomes blurred or his visual reference is limited.
I put a pair of goggles on and restricted my vision and turned my head down so I couldn't see the instruments in the airplane. And I attempted to fly the airplane solely by my body motion, how my body felt, what it was telling me that I was doing. And we found out that I can't, even as an experienced pilot, that I cannot keep the airplane straight and level under those conditions. And eventually, in a very short period of time, the airplane ended up in a right turn with the nose down and is accelerating. And it's what we call a spiral dive. And of course, at that point, I looked up and referenced my instruments in the outside and righted the airplane. But that's a demonstration of what can happen.
If Taylor was disoriented and flying with inaccurate instruments, why didn't he defer navigation to one of the student pilots?
Those pilots are really relying on the flight commander to make the ultimate decision. And the flight commander in this case was completely confused and totally lost as far as where he thought he was versus where he was. The flight started to proceed on a heading of 270 back towards land. And there was a fix obtained on the flight off of New Smyrna, Florida, approximately 130 miles offshore.
Another transmission is intercepted that reports the flight may have turned back to the east.
And at that location, they had approximately 20 minutes of fuel left. They would have never made land even if they knew where they were.
As the sun sets, the Avengers will be close to running out of fuel.
When the first man gets to his last 2 gallons of gas, we'll all land in the water together. Does everyone understand?
Although it's not 100%. And they made a decision that if they were going to go down, they would go down together. I think they felt that they were so lost at this point in time, they weren't going to find land, and that if they were going to ditch, they'd have a better chance of being picked up if they were together.
Knowing that a ditch into rough seas has slim chance of survival, why would the pilots of Flight 19 follow Taylor into the water?
Well, in the military operations like that, where you're doing formation flying, the pilots are taught to follow the leader, and that's just the way it is. So if the leader makes a mistake and flies into a mountain, usually everybody else in the formation flies into the mountain also.
Official records declare 7:04 p.m. as the final transmission of Flight 19. Hours later, contact is lost with one of the search teams, a Mariner seaplane with a crew of 13.
This aircraft proceeded up the coast of Florida to New Smyrna, and then turned east and started flying offshore. And during its course offshore, it disappeared from radar.
There are eyewitness reports of a giant fireball plummeting to the ocean. Is it possible that the missing Mariner blew up? Leffie thinks that's exactly what happened.
It's unusual for an aircraft to explode, but an aircraft like that, loaded with over 1,000 gallons of aviation fuel, high volatility, very, very prone to an in-flight explosion if someone smokes in the aircraft. It's very, very tragic, but really not out of the realm of something that might be ordinary.
Although no wreckage was ever found of the 5 Avengers or the Mariner, investigator Peter Leffie thinks the records speak for themselves.
Well, the conclusions I reached after reviewing a tremendous amount of information about Flight 19, there was nothing unusual about it. In most airplane accidents, one finds that it's not a single problem that brings the airplane down. It's a compounding of one problem on top of another problem on top of another problem until the pilot is overwhelmed with his ability to manage multiple problems simultaneously. And in this case, we start to see a multiplicity of problems: bad weather, disorientation, a belief that he's somewhere where he isn't.
Leffie contends the tragedy is no mystery at all.
But I saw nothing to suggest any anomalies that would suggest anything other than spatial disorientation of the flight leader. I didn't see anything to suggest aliens, supernatural forces, magnetic anomalies, gas clouds, or anything out of the ordinary.
If expert analysis of Flight 19's records can form these logical conclusions, what else can science tell us about this and other mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle? Hurricanes, lightning waterspouts. The region known as the Bermuda Triangle is notorious for erratic, often violent, changes in weather. The United States Coast Guard are exceptionally experienced at responding to distress calls off the sandy Florida beaches. On average, they receive about 8,000 distress calls annually from this area, 700 calls a month, close to 25 calls each day. The Coast Guard attributes most of the accidents to human error, mechanical failure, and the area's harsh weather conditions.
South Florida is prone to having thunderstorms and squalls blow up all the time in this area. Factors that would make these waters.
Join millions growing their career with Coursera. Start learning today.
When you've got a big financial friend who can give you an instant boost, your goals become easier to reach. Always by your side, your BFF is ready with so many ways to help you save. And by offering suggestions, your big financial friend can help you get where you want to go. Well, that's Experian, your big financial friend. Experian.
Your membership is more than just a card. It's your gateway to extraordinary experiences. With the AAA app, discover savings and hidden gems. AAA, we're always with you.
Difficult to navigate are the same factors we would find anywhere else. People not being prepared, people drinking while boating.
Each year, the Bermuda Triangle is the site of numerous tropical storms and hurricanes. Could some of the many accidents in the Triangle simply be a result of volatile weather?
The Bermuda Triangle is a special area, both meteorologically and oceanographically. It's an area where cold air and warm air meet, and whenever you have two different air masses meeting, you get severe weather.
Bart Hagemeyer is head meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Melbourne, Florida.
We're responsible for forecasting the marine conditions off the east coast of Florida, and we know it's a really wild and dynamic marine environment.
Hagemeyer has been an eyewitness to innumerable hurricanes.
The most awe-inspiring one for us was back in August of 1992 when Hurricane Andrew was moving over the Bahamas, and you could tell just by looking at the radar that it was going to be terrible.
Andrew left 41 dead and caused $25 billion of damage in Florida alone. The 2005 hurricane season was a terrifying reminder of the destructive power that can be spawned in the waters off Florida.
Off the east coast of Florida, the Caribbean, the Bahamas area, is a very dynamic area. I mean, weather can evolve rather rapidly. A good example is this. We're working the hurricane season here, and we've had 4 storms develop right over the Bahamas area this year, which is really unprecedented.
Hagemeyer and his colleagues don't put much stock in the legends of the Bermuda Triangle. They have more tangible issues to contend with.
With the National Weather Service, we're trying to predict the weather over the land and over the sea, and we've got a big enough challenge, forecasting the weather for the normal without worrying about the paranormal. And our job is to get the forecast and get the information out to try and keep people safe.
The region's powerful storms can often catch both experienced and inexperienced boaters by surprise.
If you're not watching the weather before you go out because you didn't take a safe boating class, you're going to run into trouble. You're going to run into some heavy winds, some heavy rain.
There's the potential for strong currents, strong winds, bad weather, thunderstorms, and all of these things add up to naturally occurring phenomena that increase the probability of an accident.
Adding to the possibility of fatal accidents is the presence of dangerous waterspouts. Tornadoes that pass over the sea and pick up a column of water. For centuries, these ocean twisters were a genuine fear for any sailor attempting to navigate the waters of the Bermuda Triangle.
The winds inside a waterspout can get up to at least 190 miles an hour. That is plenty enough wind to spin over a boat.
Storm photographer Jim Edds has witnessed a waterspout's fury firsthand.
Waterspouts come in two types. One is, they call it fair weather waterspout, where you have a long, dark, flat base, a cumulus cloud base, and you'll get a column of warm air circulating up. Generally, they're not too strong, they don't move too fast, and they're easy to steer around or get around. The other is what they call a tornadic waterspout, where you have a supercell, a severe thunderstorm that's rotating, and you have a much more intense waterspout circulating underneath that. Those move a little faster, stronger winds, and more dangerous.
The Florida Keys alone get more than 500 waterspouts a year.
Most waterspouts don't move that fast, but if you're in a boat and say you're down there eating at the galley and you're not paying attention to what's happening in the air, what the clouds are doing, you could sail right into a waterspout. It could flip your boat over and you'd never hear from them again. You won't know what happened.
With the waters off the coast of Florida plagued by deadly and quick developing storms, could weather have played a part in the loss of Flight 19?
There was surface winds in a range of 20 gusting to 30 knots. So it was a fairly uncomfortable day. There was some clouds, fairly low, 2,500 feet, and the weather, if anything, was starting to deteriorate.
I think I know more about what happened on Flight 19 than anybody else who was not on that flight themselves, anybody alive. The weather was not good that day.
Experts seem to agree that if the squadron encountered a full-blown thunderstorm, the static electricity from lightning could have compromised Flight 19's communications and caused a compass malfunction.
If you're operating a boat or an aircraft into an intense thunderstorm or in the immediate vicinity of lightning, and of course Florida is the lightning capital of the United States, you could have certainly some instrument anomalies.
So chances are they ran into some weather, lost their bearings in the clouds due to the weather because they didn't have the sophisticated electronics equipment that we have today.
If pilot disorientation combined with extreme weather conditions caused the Flight 19 disaster, then might the region's unpredictable weather be the primary reason for other unexplained triangle cases?
There may be other reasons why things have disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle that we don't know yet. So I'm not going to write off everything as due to the weather.
May 2nd, 1998. Captain John Willis sails his boat, the Ms.Chariot, out onto a calm Atlantic Ocean. After a long ride to his favorite spot for fishing, Willis lays down to rest before he starts to fish. Suddenly, the boat rocks violently. A large wave throws the captain from his bed and capsizes the Ms.Chariot, sending her to the ocean floor. An investigation reveals that the accident was caused by a phenomenon known as rogue waves.
In the Bermuda Triangle area, we have some of the world's fastest currents, largest waves, and strongest winds.
Examining these chaotic, violent seas is a passion of marine scientist Arthur Mariano, a professor at the University of Miami.
In the ocean, we have the occurrence of what's known as rogue waves.
The region is known for the prevalence of giant, unpredictable waves that can reach hazardous heights.
Most waves will have a size range, let's say from 8 to 10 feet on the average, but every 100,000th wave that comes by may be 20 feet. These are waves that are 2 to 3 times bigger than the average wave in a fully developed sea. as the wave height doubles, the actual energy that it hits your boat with increases by a factor of 4. A lot of boats can't handle that energy, and these rogue waves can be very destructive.
Obviously, waves of this magnitude could adversely affect vessels.
Large waves that are the result of the severe weather and the strong currents help fuel the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle.
In addition to the destructive waves, the powerful currents in the Bermuda Triangle heighten the chances of shipwrecks. Mariano claims that these currents may solve the riddles of some mysterious disappearances from centuries past.
The strong currents in the Bermuda Triangle have historically caused sailors many problems. In the old days, people sailed by dead reckoning and what was known as shooting the stars, celestial navigation. Strong currents can significantly take you off course and get you confused where you are in the ocean. Now, if you unfortunately are off course, you're far away from land, and a strong storm starts building, the combination of the storm and the currents increasing the average wave height puts you in a very dangerous situation.
One of the unique aspects in the seas of the Bermuda Triangle is also the most treacherous, a liquid superhighway known as the Gulf Stream.
The Gulf Stream system does flow through the Bermuda Triangle. It's a very strong western boundary current that flows from south to north. It's very important in ocean climate dynamics. It brings a lot of heat from south to north. There's two major components to how the ocean currents move material around. One is due to the mean currents, and the Gulf Stream is a very fast mean current, 3, 4, 5 miles an hour.
The powerful Gulf Stream current can pinch off into eddies, small, short-lived whirlpools below the surface of the ocean.
Ocean eddies, they look like tornadoes and hurricanes in the atmosphere. Dynamics are slightly different. However, they're also very energetic features that can cause problems with navigation and also steepen waves. These eddies lead to a phenomenon called turbulent dispersion. That is, if you put a bunch of objects in an ocean, even if it has no mean current, the turbulent dispersion will take those objects and disperse them over a very large area in a short amount of time. And this leads to a very hard search and rescue problem.
Turbulent dispersion may even provide clues as to why no bodies or plane wreckage were ever found from the ill-fated Flight 19.
There is scientific explanations for why those planes are missing. My best guess is that Flight 19 ended up in the ocean due to bad weather. And once they were on the ocean surface, the large waves during a storm event ripped those planes apart. Some of the planes sank in areas, and we don't know exactly where they sank, but this happened in the area where the flow of the Gulf Stream was 3, 4, 5 knots.
Using a wave tank, Mariano was able to demonstrate what may have happened to the debris from Flight 19.
What we're going to do in this wave tank right here is look at the dispersion of dye at the surface. Now, of course, an airplane is metal and it disperses much differently than dye. We're going to look under a couple different conditions. We're going to look under very calm conditions. And as you look here at the dye during these calm conditions, what you see is that the dye disperses fairly slowly. Now, when we crank up the system here, we see that the dye disperses much more rapidly. This very simple experiment gives us an idea that what possibly could have happened on that day is that the plane went down and quickly dispersed and then sunk to the ocean bottom.
Mariano applies computer animation to further illustrate his dispersion theory.
If a boat breaks down in the Bermuda Triangle, it can experience real strong currents that will push a great distance. So whatever wreckage was left of those planes that didn't sink would get quickly dispersed all over the ocean. You can see in this video in 36 hours, and then by 72 hours, the region that the wreckage can be found is 10,000 square miles. This is definitely a case of trying to find a needle in a haystack when you don't know the initial location and you're in a region of very large dispersion. So it would be extremely difficult to find that squadron.
The Bermuda Triangle's perilous waters seem to be a logical cause for many of the region's so-called unexplained accidents and shipwrecks. But can science refute every fantastic triangle theory?
This fog has an electromagnetic energy within it. And once it captured us, our electronic instruments and the magnetic instruments, they all started malfunctioning.
In the scientific community, the Bermuda Triangle is really no mystery at all. Most experts believe cases of planes gone missing and ships vanishing can be explained by science.
When situations happen where a plane goes down or a vessel is lost, more often times than not, it's error on the operator not having the knowledge that he needs to navigate the waters, or it's a mechanical problem with the plane or the vessel.
Others assert that strange and puzzling forces plague the region. But sometimes their theories straddle a fine line between science fact and science fiction. In 1970, Bruce Gernon experienced an event in the skies above the Bermuda Triangle that forever changed his life. While flying his airplane over the Bahamas, Gernon entered into an unusual cloud bank that seemed to appear out of nowhere.
It was like a typical cloud inside with practically no visibility. This little lenticular cloud had spread out into an immense squall. It was like no other squall I had ever seen because it appeared to be circular. As far as I could see, it was a semicircle spread out on either side of me 10 miles in the shape of a huge donut. And I flew along the edge of the storm in a southerly direction, hoping that I would find an escape route. And it looked like there wasn't any because it just kept continuing in a circle.
While caught inside this strange circular storm, Gernon claims he saw a tunnel through the clouds. To this day, he believes it was his only way out.
Immediately upon entry into this tunnel, a bizarre thing happened. Lines instantly formed all around the walls of the tunnel. And they were like little puffs of clouds that created these lines. And they continued the whole way of the tunnel. And I noticed that they were rotating very slowly counterclockwise. I aimed for the other end of the tunnel, and it should have taken me about 3 minutes to reach the other end. But it only took 20 seconds. It was incredible, because I believe I was actually seeing time when I saw those lines. And I was actually seeing and flying through the fabric of time itself.
Gernon calls the eerie mist into which he flew electronic fog.
This fog has an electromagnetic energy within it. And once it captured us, when we exited the tunnel, our electronic instruments and the magnetic instruments, mainly, they all started malfunctioning. There was no blue sky. Everything was gray, a strange gray.
Gernon maintains that it took him only 3 minutes to traverse through the entire area of electronic fog, a journey that would normally take 30 minutes. He compares it to entering a wormhole in space.
Well, this is new science. They're discovering that there are many wormholes out there. And I believe there are wormholes right here on Earth.
Wormholes are hypothetical connections between widely separated regions of space and time.
It may sound far-fetched, but it's not that far-fetched when you get into subatomic sciences.
you'd have particles reappearing and disappearing all the time. And on a grand, large scale, this could be applicable to, let's say, aircraft in the Bermuda Triangle region.
Believers in the theory that the Bermuda Triangle is an area of wormholes and energy vortices often cite the work of self-educated physicist John Hutchison.
I know Bruce Gernon and his experiences with the Bermuda Triangle because I felt the same thing when I was working on my equipment. I walked right into this electronic fog. I didn't even see it. I walked into it, and it seemed like I was into a fog, and I would walk back, and everything was clear as day. By somebody being rather unlucky getting into one of these areas, let's say a ship or an aircraft, and all of a sudden it either disappears or they go off course and crash somewhere, or they're pulled down. The whole area of the triangle is not that active. It's a wandering force that goes around in that region.
But wormholes, time travel, and electronic fog are largely rejected by the scientific community.
We've had some strange reports over the years, but no, I've never heard of anybody sucked into a time tunnel.
The National Weather Service probably won't be investigating electronic fog anytime soon.
I know, I've never heard of electronic fog. We're busy enough, obviously dealing with meteorological fog.
Meteorological fog is a very real and well-documented weather condition. It can wreak havoc on boats and planes trying to travel through it. And the area of the Bermuda Triangle has the perfect conditions to create this navigational hazard.
It occurs when the air temperature is cooled to the point of the dew point, and that causes fog. And a good example of that is if you have cold air moving off, behind a cold front, it front stalls out over the Gulf Stream, that you've got perhaps still 80-some degree water temperatures, so the immediate air temperature there close to the surface is in the low 80s, and you may have 40 or 50 degree air temperatures above that, and that certainly can cause an area of near zero visibility and sea fog.
Hagermeyer and his colleagues at the National Weather Service have yet to identify anomalies lurking within meteorological fog.
Sometimes we get just the right conditions, and sea fog can persist for quite a while off the east coast of Florida. That's the only kind of fog that I'm familiar with.
But Bruce Gernon believes the fog he traveled through had a unique aspect to it, one that has yet to be explained by science, and one that he believes may have been a factor in some triangle incidents.
Dozens of pilots have been in it, and I believe that dozens more have been in it and died.
Gernon believes that, like him, the lost pilots from Flight 19 may very well have encountered electronic fog.
Flight 19 encountered something very similar to what I did when I was in the electronic fog. They were only about 30 miles north of the time tunnel that I flew through. And their first report of entering this electronic fog was at 3:30 in the afternoon. That's the exact time that I was captured by this fog, only almost exactly 25 years later. I'm not sure if they experienced any time slips, but they definitely became totally disoriented because it did affect their instruments. Their magnetic compasses weren't working. None of them could figure out which way was west. It also affected their electronic instruments. They had an instrument that pointed back to Fort Lauderdale, and all they had to do was follow the needle.
While experts discount the electronic fog theory, could regular fog have contributed to the mysterious disappearance of Flight 19?
Back at the time of Flight 19, there's really no reliable weather data other than a few isolated weather reports, so it's pretty easy to see how events that happened in the past, where there wasn't a lot of detailed weather data available, they may not necessarily think that weather is a factor, but it may well could have been.
John Quasar believes the weather was indeed a factor on the night of December 5th, 1945. He proposes a new theory that places Flight 19 over land.
The entire Florida coast was completely covered by low cloud cover. It would have been impossible for them to have seen land. And Avengers had no landing lights for whatever extraordinary reason that was. They had no way of even landing in the dark.
Could Quasar's alternate explanation open a new chapter in Flight 19's history?
I have the evidence that Flight 19 did continue to fly west. They did cross the coast, went to Bachelor Beach, and finally ditched in the Okefenokee Swamp in southern Georgia. I was able to get the Air Transport Command report that showed 5 unidentified aircraft near the swamp at 8:50 p.m. that night. Both Brunswick and Jacksonville reported 5 unidentified aircraft. That was relayed to Miami. So here you have 5 unidentified aircraft on that very night that never landed, they never arrived at any port, and they're unaccounted for. One very crucial bit of evidence is that the carrier Solomons reported 4 to 6 aircraft crossing the coast on its radar at 7 o'clock that night when the flight was still known to be up. And had that flight ditched at sea, which is what the Navy claimed, it would have been on Solomon's radar when it did so. That was dismissed.
Quasar feels that Flight 19, as well as many other Bermuda Triangle mysteries, should be scrutinized in greater detail.
It's important for us to investigate because these disappearances are real. The ships and aircraft disappeared. They existed in records. The people were real, we know all that, and they are gone. And an answer must be found.
Almost 60 years to the day, the Navy airmen of Flight 19 and the Mariner search plane were honored with a House resolution in Washington, D.C. Representative Clay Shaw of Florida said, "While the events of that day may go unexplained, the memories of those men will not go unrecognized." And he hoped the gesture would help bring closure for the surviving families. No matter how today's science explains the fate of Flight 19, there are some who will continue to believe that its disappearance remains part of a larger, unsolved mystery of the Bermuda Triangle.
We can put a man on the moon, we can split the atom. Surely, this tiny mystery off the coast of Cuba should not keep us in the dark for so long. But it does, and we have to ask ourselves why. What forces are at work, both natural, supernatural, that's keeping us on the other side of fully understanding what lies at the heart of the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle?
The disappearances of the triangle I attribute to human error, mechanical malfunction, weather or atmospheric phenomena. Those account for 90% of the disappearances. The other 10% of the disappearances I don't think we'll ever know about or ever discover the cause.
I don't think the Bermuda Triangle will ever be explained to the satisfaction of science or the popular imagination.
But to many, the Bermuda Triangle is more legend than truth, more myth than reality.
There is no real evidence available for the Bermuda Triangle. There are just a lot of stories that may or may not be connected with one another. I think that people who are predisposed to accept a lot of mythological explanations for things or supernatural explanations for things have no trouble connecting them.
I believe the Bermuda Triangle is a myth. I believe it's 3 imaginary lines in the water. These waters are no different than any other water up and down the seacoast.
There's a part of me that would love to see an alien come down. I mean, I'd like to meet somebody from another planet, but I really don't believe that that is causing any of these losses.
I think the Bermuda Triangle story is a lot of nonsense. Airplanes and ships disappear all over the world all the time. It has nothing to do with a particular location or area. you look at the history of all these disappearances, you'll find that they're not confined only to the so-called Bermuda Triangle.
With only a few exceptions, incidents that remain unsolved were incidents that I could find nothing for, which makes me suspicious of where did the mystery come from if no information can be found to verify that this ever happened. The less a person knows about a subject when they're writing a mystery, the better mystery they can write.
Need a sec? At Ollie, we get it. That's why we made new vitamin-infused body washes, scientifically formulated to repair your skin barrier, and fragrances proven to shift your vibe. Care for your skin, for your mood, for all of you.
Here at Parker Alexander, we focus on plain personal injury and medical malpractice. Our #1 priority is to ensure that our clients are made whole and that they're able to resume their lives in the best way possible.
Quick temper is his reputation. Although he caught much, wouldn't sit in the back of a military bus. Fort Hood, Texas. Driver asked him to move back. MPs had to take him off. Well, you see? I see he resents segregation. White, call that spirit. Robinson's a Methodist. I'm a Methodist. God's a Methodist. Can't go wrong. Find him. Bring him here.
Jackie Robinson. Who are you?
You just made the winning choice. Folgers Black Silk was preferred over Starbucks French Roast in a blind taste test. Go ahead, sip for yourself.
Enjoy 2 years free from hair and hair removal. Discover Bronze Smart IPL, the smart alternative to laser.
What's different about you? It's Chevron the Techron. I'm feeling so good. I'm getting beatable mileage and working on keeping those engine parts clean. Come on, what is it? I'm telling you, Chevron the Techron. Awesome decision on our part.